to start with?
We should start with, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves first, and then we can start with something.
All right, I'm Andrew from the CHRILLCAST,
and Will. Welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about two shows today. It's a double feature. New House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones show, as well as the Rings of Power.
The two
episodes.
Power,
yeah. And I figured that because there's only one episode for the House of the Dragon, we should cover that one first.
All right, sounds good. What were your initial thoughts?
I really liked it. Daemon's still badass, and I really enjoyed the fact that he's just like, screw King's Landing, screw the king. I'm going to end this war myself right now.
I thought the time jump was very good.
Yes.
My one criticism, maybe, for the episode, I'm with you. I really liked it, but my one criticism might be that because of the time jump, it made the episode feel really fast.
Yes.
Like slow, like not slow, but like it short. It made the episode feel short.
Yeah, well, they cut out a lot of like good bits. So like,
yeah,
like when Daemon got shot and flew off, and then suddenly it was 3 years later, I was like, oh my gosh, like Daemon died. Like, what happened here? It's like, I don't think he dies in the books at this point. But then I realized, oh, it's a time jump because someone actually mentioned it. So I agree with you. And also, they cut out the part where he kills the crab eater.
Right. So it's just like there's a lot of little scenes that I feel like they could have added some stuff. They could have made it like maybe 10, 15 minutes longer, and it would have felt right.
Yeah.
But with the time jump, it felt like the episode was short.
Yeah, agreed.
And but like everything that's covered in there was really good. I thought it was. They did a good representation of the politics of her now being the one, like the right age to be married. Everyone assuming that her brother's going to be named the heir.
Yeah, but the king really putting his stake in the stand, saying, no, it's going to be you, and that's going to tear the realm apart. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I like the symbolism that they had with the stag being not being white, but everyone like anticipating it, kind of just like him subverting expectations by not naming him the heir. So, and then I really like what they've done, honestly, like with the other Valerian family and everything. It's been like that dynamic. The fact that he seems to be resisting the marriage concept of uniting that family for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's a good dynamic. It kind of, I think it sets the stage for what's to come still. Just like Daemon and them, like, we're just going to go ahead with our plan, screw King's Landing's reinforcements.
Exactly. And the thing is, what is good for me right now is I don't remember how the story goes.
No, same.
I can't remember if she marries anyone or who she marries. And it could very much be Valerion's son. And he's another dragon rider, so that would make some sense.
Who is riding the dragon?
The son.
Was it the son? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty certain it's the son riding his dragon.
Okay. So it was just one of those things where I thought the entire, like, I don't remember how the exact history goes right now because it's been a long time since I've read anything Game of Thrones related. So
it goes badly. I just can't remember how.
Yeah, it's bad. It goes badly. Tons of conflict in the future, but like, it's kind of good too because it was always it's like a history book. The way it's always been talked about, it's never been spelt out. So I feel like that's actually really conducive to this way they want to fill the gaps with the storytelling, and I think they've been doing a really good job.
Yes, and also like the acting is so phenomenal. I feel like the actors that they got for each role really fit the character, and the dialogue does too. So that's something I'm going to get into with Lord of the Rings show. But the dialogue fits so well,
and they've explained everybody. I feel like that's a big thing, right? Like everyone's background got explained. That's how you open up a season. The first 3 episodes have really given everyone
who are these
background.
people and what are their motivations, and you know it.
And it's like, it's not like spelled out, right? It's not spelled out, but it's dynamically told through like interactions and
staring,
subtleties.
like facial expressions, just the mood of the scene. You can feel it.
Just like the thing is, oh, I'm a second son and type of thing. Like, no, he doesn't even do that. It's just like us second sons have to take what's like, it's subtly thrown in there, and then that tells you everything you need to know about the sea snake. Like, that's everything you need to know. Like, he's a person who has ambitions. He sees it as he has to take what's his because he was the second son. And like, it's such a good way to give that background. Which this will be a complaint of mine for Lord of the Rings. We've had two really long episodes.
Who is everybody?
It's terrible So it's like, but these showrunners have been so good at everything. Like, not a single character feels like they've just been thrown in there just to be there. They've all been explained very well. You know who the power players are. You can already see conflicts with certain families feeling scorned. You can tell that the Lannisters are going to be a pain in the ass because they're going to feel scorned. So it's just like you can see it all.
They name dropped the North too. I looked in the naming ceremony. I looked for Stark sigils. I did not see one.
So that's the other thing. I noticed that they talked about the North and the Vale he needed the Vale to marry the Vale because that rivaled the North's army. Yeah.
Which is an interesting dynamic. So
they're painting the North as like independent.
Well, they said 7 kingdoms. Did you catch that? Because I don't think they have Dorne yet.
Right.
They named him as
Dorne a late
oh yeah,
edition?
it was like one of the last ones. Yeah, way later. I could be wrong in that. They could have it by now, but
right now, but they're still setting it up where the North has like a ton of autonomy. And that's why he needed the alliance with the Vale, which will be interesting because of the whole, winter is coming, and now this prophecy that the Targaryens keep talking about. So it's like it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Also, okay, so a couple things that to contrast it with the other show, the other Game of Thrones show, is one, the dragons look really freaking cool. I love the wings on their feet. That's super,
okay. You like that?
I love it.
I felt like the dragons are a little long.
Yeah, they're very slender. They definitely gave a different look, but it looks much more serpentine like their sigil. So I do like that.
That's fair.
And another thing is that they're not invincible. So you notice, like, he can't just swoop in there and save everyone, and suddenly, like, the war has ended. Like, it took 3 years, and they have to plan to get them out of these caves, which I really appreciate.
You can't fly all the way across the North in a day.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate they're actually trying to bring some realism to that. Like, yeah, they're a major power player, but they're not they're not gods.
Right. Like, it's one of those things where they make it apparent that the dragons aren't like the end all be all, because otherwise everyone in the universe would be owned by the Targaryen, like the Valyrian descendants, right? The whole world would have been conquered. But also they make it quite apparent that you have to like live underground.
Yeah.
You're not going to live a full life if you're fighting them, because the dragons will make your life miserable. It's why none of the kingdoms could really resist. It's not because the dragons are invincible and all of that. It's that on an open field, you're not going to be able to really fight. And no one's going to want to live that conflict underground in siege mode for however long, because you're not going to be able to have the food. You're not going to be able to have anything. You're going to literally be in siege mode until you starve to death. And the second you go onto the open field, well, have fun with Dragonfire.
I will say, so the part of the realism thing, when Daemon is running across like that field, the arrows are getting shot at him, I was like, this is it'd be hard to hit a moving target from that distance. I was like, it's kind of ridiculous. But the moment he stops, he gets shot 3 times. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what happened.
I mean, at first I was like, okay, this is a little bullshit. There's a lot of arrows flying. And then like like you say, him getting hit eventually, like I was like, okay, if he doesn't get hit at all, this is going to be a bullshit scene to make him.
And I also appreciate that they weren't all just chest shots, because like every show ever is always like, oh, it's going to be in a chest shot, but he's fine. But like one goes in his leg, and he's limping, and he's not doing
shoulder. Well. I appreciate the shoulder shot, because obviously you can still do shit. Like, as long as it's like, I hope they have a recovery phase, but it'll be interesting to see if they do another time jump, I think.
Yeah, well, I've been told that like in halfway through the season, it jumps like 20 years or something.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if the show can talk about a lot of things with the fact that they're willing to do time jumps, because that was like the main issue with the original story, right? Because like Martin wants to do time jumps in his books, but he hasn't, and then the show doesn't do time jumps because he doesn't set that precedent really in his books. So it'll be
not 20-year time jumps, at least. I think there is some jumping around. Honestly, it's been so long since I've read them. I don't really know. I can't remember anything.
Not large time jumps. It's very reasonable. Otherwise, Rickon would be an adult. Like that's the only reason a time jump would make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm. But overall, would you say this episode compares to the last one?
I think this was better because it actually, this was a really good transition from the dynamics being set up in the last one. This one kind of is a good tie-in to what seems like it will be a lot more action-packed going forward. Basically, they've taken it now where, the son has been born. She's pregnant with another kid. Mm-hmm. So there's that political intrigue and then the marriage prospects. But then you're seeing the results of the conflict that you just witnessed in the previous episode and how it's been going on for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And the way that you've done the conflict, it's that's not going to stop. You're going to keep seeing conflict. Yep. So I think the season's being set up very strong. I think
you already kind of have an idea of where it can go as well, which is something different than the other show.
It builds up expectations.
Yes.
I think it is building up expectations. Mm-hmm. People have a lot of anticipation for what the conflict will be.
Yep.
Because it's been
a family conflict, which it's even more grand. It's not like, there's some mystical bad guy that we're maybe building up to.
Because it leaves you let's look at it from the perspective of someone who doesn't know the histories of the story, which is going to be a large segment of the original series viewers, right? Because they're family and it's a family affair. You're always going to be wondering how far one of them is willing to take it.
Yep.
It makes you okay, I see where it could go, but I have no idea if it will actually get to that point. And I think that's a really good dynamic. Being rusty with the history myself at the moment,
speaking of that, last episode I said they hadn't started intermarrying yet. I'm so far off base. Aegon the Conqueror marries his sisters.
Okay.
In the very beginning. That was way off. That precedent was set immediately.
The Targaryens have always had that.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I forgot about it too. But it's they're Targaryens. They're immune. Mm-hmm. It's like that. What is that one Far East religion that was Zora something?
Oh, Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, that's like a thing where incest was. So they kind of have that.
I remember that
concept. No, it's there's a Far East religion that was. That allows. If you ever play Crusader Kings as a video game, it's a thing that it's considered acceptable for that. Yeah, it's a really weird, almost approved concept for rulers. So,
I mean, you don't have to go that far. Just go to England or any of the major monarchies that were in Europe.
Oh no, but it's it's siblings, and it's embraced as a concept for rulers. So it's basically I think what the Targaryens are kind of modeled after. Just a teeny
that makes sense. Yeah.
So, did we want to get into Lord of the Rings? Because there's 2 episodes.
What would you say your ranking out of 10
for what?
For Game of Thrones? Yeah, well, House
of Dragon. Out of 10? Oh, we didn't rank the first 2. Do we want to rank all 3 that have been out so far? So the first one I would rank a strong 7.
I would agree with that. 7 is mine too.
I would say number 2 was a strong. I'd say it's an 8.5.
Okay.
Because for what it was, the build-up play, I think it's as good as can be. It gave you a ton of background on a lot of characters to make that tied in a lot of loose ends. It really showed you who each character that you were dealing with was.
I agree.
So as far as world building goes, impeccable. This last one, I would probably say an 8 because it gave you more world building set up to understand how things will progress forward. And it also gave you action and conflict that was pretty good the way it was laid out. There wasn't a lot of combat per se. It wasn't a long drawn out conflict where you saw a lot of people actually fighting because it was mainly Daemon and then Dragonfire. But the way it was orchestrated, I think, makes it strong still.
Yeah.
So I'd give it an 8.
Yeah, I would say 7, 8, and 8, and basically all the same reasons. Yeah. I think they're really strong episodes. I don't want to give them higher scores. So I'm hoping like, you know, it's gonna be something that is blow me away.
I have to leave it for improvement.
Yes.
Because like you bring me a Battle of the Bastards thing, like that was I'll say that is like one of the best episodes for like a later episode.
Except for the veil coming through. I mean, if they had like
right. If
that just didn't happen, it would have been great.
If you had stayed more true to what you expect in the books to happen, which the veil could still be a player. It's just I highly doubted that was going to be a player.
It's like Gandalf's already done this. Like you're clearly running out of material here, and you're just copying another franchise.
Right. So it's one of those things where the battle was epic prior to that.
Yes.
So I give them
and after that, like them going into Winterfell was also really cool, kicking the crap out of Ramsay. Yeah.
Right. Okay, better one would be like the Wilding Siege of Castle Black.
Oh, that was fantastic.
So,
oh my gosh. You
had the right characters. I mean, the characters don't actually die in the books, do they? I forget. The friends.
No, I don't think so.
So.
Oh, maybe they did.
I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But that was just done very well. The whole conflict scene, very well done. I think, no, that's like a 10. I would have to give it a 10. There's no way to say that wasn't a 10. So it's going to happen. There's going to be one of those episodes, I believe, this season that actually gets a 10. And everything we've seen so far actually makes me believe that.
And yeah, it's building up the anticipation. All right, let's jump into the other show that we're probably going to malign a lot here in a second.
Yes.
Rings of Power. It's based off of a property that's near and dear to my heart, and I believe Andrew's as well. It's my favorite my favorite fantasy series. I love the Silmarillion. I love the appendices, all the Lost Tales. I love even like the history book of like Baron Luthien, where there's like different versions of that story, and his son is just explaining how he went through and assembled his father's work. I love that. And obviously, the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. However, this show
is not that.
Is not that. And
it doesn't try to be that either. That's key.
Yeah. I think they want to be close to that, but it really like having these two shows coming out at the same time, the Game of Thrones show and the Lord of the Rings show, really contrast what good writing does. Because holy crap, is like there are similar motifs and similar themes to these characters, like Galadriel. Really, like they're trying to strike the same chord as you're having with Rhaenyra. And I'm not going to fault the actress, but like that writing and the way that each film or each scene is filmed is atrocious.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it doesn't help that you're contrasting it to Kate Blanchett, which is just phenomenal in that role. But even if you like try to set it aside, like Elrond is very different, but I still like him. It's just, like the writing is so bad for that character.
The actor for Elrond makes him likable still.
Do you know that's Ned Stark, baby Ned Stark in Game of Thrones?
Huh?
That's he played Ned Stark in that flashback when Bran sees him at the tower.
Oh, did he?
That's Ned Stark, yeah.
So, yeah, let's touch on that on one of your points real quick.
Okay.
The writing, you can tell what is good writing and what is bad writing, and let's jump right into the most glaring thing: world building.
Yep.
I don't know if these writers for Lord of the Rings don't believe they need to world build because of the previous shows,
which is so dumb because it's so far removed from that story.
I don't know if they think they don't need to do it because
there's
of Lord of the Rings.
Completely different kingdoms. There's entirely different countries. Actually, the world is different. Numenor still exists. So like Middle Earth hasn't even really formed yet.
Right. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's because of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit that they just don't think they need to world build. I'm inclined to believe it has something to do with that.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake on their part.
Right, and it's extremely lazy. Everything that I've praised about Game of Thrones, for example, with how you understand your characters, you understand the different regions, you understand everything. Yep. Okay, the thing that, let's not be around the bush here, the thing that has caused a lot of uproar among fandom and everything has been the whole diversity topic.
And I know you're going to get into this.
I know, but it's how it's been rolled out.
Yes.
We've discussed it.
Yeah, well, give your thoughts first, and then I will give my thoughts on the diversity part.
So, my thoughts is this: it's extreme. The way they've done it is extremely lazy. They treat it like black characters can't have their own archetype / cultural group within this universe, which is garbage because Lord of the Rings as a universe, Middle Earth literally has these
all of
people,
the races.
has every race in it. It has it. Is it not? Are they not really present in what we have seen so far? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, they
because
play a major role in the backstory during this time.
They are in other areas of the world which have seen conflicts in the histories,
mm-hmm.
which have seen, like, they are talked about, like they're known, right? Right now would actually be a great time to talk about them because Sauron's influence has never been lesser, right?
Yep.
So there are technically people, like, the reason they're viewed poorly in other tellings per se is because they're basically enslaved to Sauron's influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now would be the perfect time to bring them in as, like, more dynamic characters who aren't just thralls to the big
so
baddie.
even that though, like, you are right that they are essentially enslaved. A lot of the ring wraiths actually go to those other areas and enslave them. That's part of the appendices.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of them that actually come to, like, Numenor and to Gondor, and they are part of that. So that's such a cool history where, like, they have rejected, like, the kings of their own people who have been swayed under this influence.
Exactly.
Because there's this whole history where Sauron slowly moves from these other people, and he's like, now he's conquering the rest of Middle Earth, and that's what we see in the War of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings.
Right. I mean, you can even make it where, let's say they want to say Sauron still has influence over there. You could make it where there's, like you just said, basically freedom fighters who are trying to fight against it. Like, you could bring these characters in, but, like, the way the show has done it, you have a random black elf, right? He's the only black elf. And there is no talk, like, when they're talking about going back home, right? There is no talk about, like, his specific region of where he's from, which you would expect there's some sort of background story to him, right? Like, this is a universe where people, you saw the dynamic between him and the one woman that's his love interest, where she's from the one village that's viewed as more supportive of Sauron and that, right? And there's distrust involved just because she's from a different village, right? Given the background of the different races, given all of that, the distrust of people from foreign lands in general in this universe, it is outrageous that in the first 2 episodes, there has been no talk, no world building to explain any of the background to these characters.
I definitely agree to an extent with your point, because it would have been so cool to see other parts that we haven't seen and bring that in. And again, like, just build up the world so much more than what we have seen in the Peter Jackson films.
But more atrocious than, like, okay, the 2 most atrocious ones really are the elf, because I forget his name, but, like, his character and all of the conversations with, like, his commanding officer, right? Like, him being the only elf from, just say he's from a different, like, group, or a certain region of where the elves are from. Like, it would make so much sense as part of the dialogue of, are you excited? I know you're the only person in our company from that area. Right there. Explains his background. It explains why he's the only one who looks like that out of his entire company, instead of pretending like he doesn't exist. Like, like, that's what they're doing. They're pretending like there's nothing about him that's different, when you can't. Okay, fine. The dwarves, for example. Okay, there's how many houses that were in the Far East? There's like 3, at least 3 houses that are in the Far East. Now, I don't understand why the show decided to make everyone who, like, the only minority that matters black, but the Far East is like Middle Eastern or Asian, right? The way it's described in the histories and the stories. So
it's roughly the same geography as the real world. So
so you easily could have had some, like, Middle Eastern / Asian type dwarves, and you could have made a whole, like, just when Elrond's going through this dwarven city, you could have had all this talk of, isn't it, you've seen how we've grown type of thing, and you could have just had all this talk about how we've had people from all the different houses come here. Even the Far East, the houses have shown up because attracted by the wealth of this city and what we found here. Like, It's not
just a line
hard.
of dialogue is all you would want, and then it builds the world. It makes it more mysterious because there's like, oh, maybe we'll actually get to visit these areas and see what's going on over there.
They could have used it in a way to build the universe, explain how these people who look so different are here, right? And make it make sense. Mm-hmm. Just like it just blows my mind that they can't do simple world building and explain certain things, especially the things that they know are going to be like, you're acting like there's just that biology and genetics don't exist. Like this house randomly birthed.
Even though genealogy is so important.
There's no genealogy, apparently. Okay. Hobbits. How is there a group of 50-50?
They're not hobbits, they're Harfoots.
Oh, the Harfoots, which are a type of hobbit, technically. Okay, let's just be honest here. You have this tribe, right? It clearly is a group of people who merged together. Mm-hmm. And there's no talk about the merge. No. Or anything, which maybe the next episode they can talk about that, given the fact that one of the people from clearly a specific group of the tribe has hurt his foot. Yep. Is there going to be conflict because he's associated with certain house, like a certain group of that tribe? Or are they going to act like nothing, there's nothing there, where like if the other half wants
it, Gandalf that hasn't Gandalf yet's going to heal his foot.
Okay, fine. And that's going to happen. Yes, it will.
And then he's going to be like, oh, we can trust the big stranger now because he healed this guy's foot.
Okay, we've joked about it in the past, but Tom Bombadil, right?
Oh, please just explain this, and then I want to get in my part.
Please explain it?
Yes.
Fine. Okay, we made the joke before that, like, if you want to, he's unexplained, right? Mm-hmm. This story, like, they're trying to fill a gap that's very low explanation. No one explained how hobbits were created. This is the perfect time to have Tom Bombadil show up instead of what appears to be Gandalf, right? No one gives a shit about Gandalf showing up with these hobbits. Have Tom Bombadil be around, have him actually create these hobbits, and just make it where he whimsically just wants a black hobbit, wants a white hobbit, makes him whatever the hell he wants. You could have had as much diversity as you wanted within this group of hobbits. And it would have made sense because you just had their origin story created when they don't have an origin story. Mm-hmm. And Tom Bombadil has no explanation. It would have made perfect sense to explain why he lurks near the Shire. It would have been the perfect time to actually do it. Because he is the god of the hobbits. Yeah, because he is. He literally is. Like, I don't know why Tolkien didn't write that, but
he was getting around to it. He's clearly like just a hobbit on steroids, okay?
Yeah, he clearly wrote him like he was the god of the dang hobbits. And this is the perfect time to jokingly do that. Like, otherwise, you have to explain this. Yep. It doesn't make any sense that this group of hobbits, like, genealogy, genetics, biology, like, you can't explain how you're in this cold northern region and you just have this group of people who've been living together forever and they don't look alike. There's not a lot of movement and travel between villages
within the group at the very least.
Yeah, within the group they don't look alike. Yeah. Right? There's no uniformity of your group. And okay, also the dwarves. Can we just talk about the vitamin D deficiency that would exist?
They're dwarves, they don't need vitamin D. They just need rocks.
Fine. I'm just saying that there's no world building to explain any of it, and that's my problem. My problem isn't with the fact that they tried to do this.
Yeah, I totally agree that
it's just that they made it where there's
they took the easiest route because they didn't want to world build because that would have actually taken some thought.
Yes,
but they didn't want to make it where it's actually accurate to the original stuff. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, we'll do 50-50 where we're going to just cast these people and then we're going to just ignore it instead of actually making a cool story around it.
Right.
So, go ahead.
Just like with the hunters, right? The traveler hunters that the Hobbits saw. All right. Yeah. One of them could be like, I can't believe it could have just been like, I can't believe I came all the way from this region for this. Like, something as simple as that. Small dialogue to be like, oh, that's the region that this guy's from. That explains why he's
and it's so cool. And also, like, it gives you hope. Like in Game of Thrones, they just name drop these regions all the time, and it's like, well, I can't wait to go there because this sounds so cool.
Right. That guy could have just been like, isn't it supposed to be the summertime now? Why is it still so cold compared to like Harad? Like it's not hard. Yeah. Like that's the region that that is known to be with people who are Black. Like, it's not hard to actually tie people in to the known lore.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
And, right.
And well, it's because Tolkien didn't write these people, and it's like, no. Yes, he did, and there's actually quite a bit of history there, and I would love to have gone into it.
Right, and it's just like, why are these? No, I'm saying, like, I know you didn't write these characters.
No. I mean, like, he wrote the regions. He wrote people from those regions, and it would be cool to have visited those.
He wrote histories of conflicts with these people, between these people, all of it, and it's just like the showrunner, like whoever, the people who did the casting, the people who did the show writing, decided to be so lazy. No, I don't think a single person is actually upset that there's. Well, okay, there are people.
Yeah, there's people that are upset.
But like, if it wasn't for the fact that showrunners don't decide to just do this, like they're trying to check off boxes and just try to like whatever, people wouldn't be as outraged because they would expect it to be explained in a way that makes sense for the story.
Yeah,
and there's the fact that it's so easy to do.
Given the material, yes.
Given the material, it's so easy to do. I mean, even the fact that the universe of Middle Earth has so many regions that are not even necessarily talked about too much. Yeah. Like, you could literally just create your own new kingdom.
That'd be so cool.
Right. Like, they could have done so much, and it would have made sense. But the reason people were upset from the very beginning is because there's no faith in the showrunners to do that.
No.
And all they did is prove them right by insulting the viewer and the fan who's like, you're going to ruin it by just making it stupid.
Yeah.
You're going to ruin the identity.
Well, what's funny is, like, you know, the diversity part is not what's ruining it. It's literally just their inability to write dialogue. They're not world building. And the people who are established, and they should at the very least have, we know what those motivations of the characters are, like Galadriel, because we know what she was doing at this time. It's just terrible. So it's just like more symptoms of like originally, like you're saying, the showrunners. I don't think they know what they're doing.
Have we ever seen one of Durin's descendants, Prince Durin's descendants, in a future thing? We have, haven't we?
Yes.
So it's like, they made his wife Black for the show, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no evidence of that in any of the other stories that we've ever seen. But fine, it's many generations removed.
Explains this. Okay, this is what happens. The dwarf women die out, so they just start having sex with each other.
Okay, but like, seriously,
you still there?
I'm still there. That was another like the conversation.
You're super delayed then if you're just not hearing this.
Oh, okay. There was another perfect opportunity to explain all of it during the dinner with Elrond. She easily could have talked about how she came from another, like, her family came from one of the groups in the Far East or wherever, one of the other mountains, and she never would have imagined marrying a Longbeard. That, like, right there, perfect opportunity, but there she is, married to a prince of the Longbeards. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
An elementary school writer could have done it. That's my complaint. That's my main complaint with the entire thing, is that they, like, I don't know, they tried to do something, but they do it lazily. Mm-hmm. And I would have been perfectly happy if they actually world built.
Yeah. All right. Are you still delayed to me?
No.
Okay, good. So yeah, no, I agree with all your points. It would have been really great for them to actually try something. They clearly spent so much money on the visuals, and they didn't give any money to the writers. And one thing I have to point out, that my wife pointed out to me, that the House of the Dragon, also the beginning of Game of Thrones, actually had the writer who they were able to bounce ideas off of. So that might have been really helpful for, you know, the dialogue and actually just world building in general. But the thing is with this show is, although they don't have the rights to it, we know where the story goes and we know where the story began. So you're in this cool period where there is a lot known, but not that much known. So you have a lot of wiggle room, and they just fell apart. I realize it's only 2 episodes in, so hopefully they get better. But and also another thing is there's a couple characters they clearly wanted to write, and the rest of it is tacked on. So I think Elrond is much better. I don't know if it's just because he can deliver the crappy dialogue better, but for whatever reason, I like him better. The short hair.
Durin's good.
Durin's good. Also like his wife, to be fair.
Yeah. She was, I mean, okay, I liked the character.
Yeah.
I like the character. I like the actress. She does good. I hate the lack of explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lack of world building.
Yes. And then I also like the Harfoots. Like, despite myself, I love hobbits. I can't help myself. But the rest of the elves were just atrocious. Like, again, I keep harping on Galadriel, but goodness gracious, we know Galadriel. She's one of the main story characters in all of the stories. She is literally the most powerful being. And
okay, but like I was really upset with how the troll scene went.
Oh,
like they set it up. Like, okay, to be fair, okay, they want to make her strong. They want to make her all that thing.
Yeah.
They made her too much of an independent.
Yes.
And her team, it's like, why is her team even there? Why is she not just going on that mission alone?
Well, the thing is, what they have forgotten is that she's with elves. One. Right. And two, these are the old elves. So these ones are way stronger than the ones that we see because they're not been diluted at this point. So, and also a lot of them
still old land elves.
Yeah. They keep talking like how she's the only one who has seen the trees of Valinor. That's just not true. There's a ton that have seen it at this point.
Right.
So there should be a bunch of old world elves that are in her company, and they should not be showing up like that. Like there are literally elves at this time who take down dragons that are the size of mountains, by themselves.
Right.
So like
I can understand the one running, getting caught off guard and retreating back.
Yeah.
But there's no way that stupid troll should have just lambasted them and looked like he was about to destroy them until she showed up and did all this magic slicing.
Well, what they could have had is she holds up her little star that she has, the light of Elendil, and then blinds it, and then they can take it down because it immediately reinforces something that she has that's unique, the light, and also that she's like a leader, but she needs the company.
I mean, they could have just worked as a team, but just done it so efficiently because they're not getting destroyed they're not getting destroyed in the Fellowship, right?
Yeah, well, that's clearly what they're trying to contrast to is you have the Fellowship and oh, look, all these guys getting their butts kicked.
But in fairness, that ice troll did not look nearly as badass as the cave trolls. So.
No, I don't know why they put horns on it.
But also, they didn't make it very large looking.
No, technically, snow trolls actually have never been described, so I guess they had some leeway.
I feel like they should have made it bigger. If they're going to make it this dominate, don't make it like it's just 2 people tall. Come on, make it a little bigger. Make it
Well, think about how kick-ass Legolas is, and he's always showing people up, but he is still getting his butt handed to him.
I
Constantly.
mean, he has a forest elf type.
Yes.
But, I mean. There's a lot, man. They just make her. I wish they would have expanded a little bit. I'll give it a compliment. I'll give the show a compliment.
Okay.
I like how they did the Elrond conversation with his king about Galadriel and how if they didn't stop her from keep going after Sauron, she would probably become the evil that she is trying to stop.
And that is a character. That is her character arc. So that was good.
Yes, which. That fits her. They're setting it up where she has a darkness in her, which is her entire motivation is vengeance. And it's you're kind of explaining how every Dark Lord has ever come to power. They're always someone seeking to get in vengeance against the previous Dark Lord.
Yeah. Well, even in the Silmarillion, Sauron is not evil to begin with. He gets corrupted by Melkor. And then he kind of is left there, and he's it's too late now.
Right.
So he basically tries to destroy everything that the elves have created, which is his entire purpose in life.
Yeah, and it's just that's a good thing. That's a good thing that they told the story that way. The rest of her arc, though, I'll say that her dialogues are extremely forced.
Yes,
I feel like they're extremely forced. They're rough. It's like a jagged.
She's super stiff.
Yeah, it's super stiff. It feels like there's missing fluidity to the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I brought this up before, that she is supposed to hit a similar chord that Rhaenyra is doing. but Rhaenyra does it so much better. And I don't
she also
think
shows depth in her character, which Galadriel has not shown. Like, she's only allowed to be badass woman with sword. Yep. So that...
Well, there's a couple times when it's like supposed to be an epic moment. It's just like, but there is no buildup, and I have no connection. So like
that's the other complaint. Yes.
Yeah. So like her having like that decision where she's not going to go back to Valinor is just like, I don't care. This is like the first episode. Like, I don't care that she's not going back yet. You should, like,
they haven't
you didn't show anything before this.
Also, they didn't make it seem like it meant shit to her.
No.
Like, her going, she didn't want to go, right? No. They didn't make her appear like she has a longing to go back.
No.
They don't give her any emotion at all up until like that point where it's like, except for like seeking vengeance. Even her sorrow for her brother is like
vengeance.
It's just vengeance. It doesn't seem like she's really that upset.
No.
Maybe they could have benefited from like an episode prior to.
Yes.
Like, I don't like maybe a build up to that moment. I don't know. But like the way they decide to start telling stories and world build with those has been poor. Like, if they've missed, like with the dwarves, they've missed like 20,000 opportunities to world build and explain things about the current situation. With the elf, they missed, with the one elf guy that's one of the main characters, they've missed multiple moments to explain things about his background. With Galadriel, they just started her character arc in like halfway through a story. Right.
Yeah, so like even though, so you know, like you have the beginning explanation where it's similar to the Lord of the Rings, how it starts, like the movies, how it has her dialogue and she's talking about the war. But the thing is, if you remember, she describes the ring, then she describes the battle, and then that's it. It's very simple. Like, okay, this is now we're at the stage, and they're going to introduce the characters that are existing in the world that's been set.
The only character that has been well built, only two characters, right, have been well built. That is Elrond, Durin. Elrond and Durin are the only characters that have truly had background stories, and whenever they introduce some new interaction, a background explanation is given.
Yep.
Something that world built.
That's what I'm saying. They wanted to write these two characters. And they wanted to write the Gandalf being introduced to the hobbits.
Yes.
I think that's probably going to be an interesting story that has
nothing to do with anything else. Galadriel is just who they picked to be like a leading star because of women power.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's the name recognition. It's like there's so many other female elves at this time, and they're like they could have just created one and like have Galadriel be like in the background. But it's just I'm so frustrated.
They picked her for name recognition.
The thing is, she is kick-ass. She is a kick-ass woman, so they didn't have to change her.
Right, but it's just one of those things where it's like it's forced.
It totally.
What they've done with her is forced. Even her and her squad, it's just poorly written.
Yeah.
Right, like her quest is poorly written.
They just seem like dudes, like just normal dudes. They didn't know how to write the elves. Somebody I was talking to my wife about earlier when we were watching the show together, and I was saying, the elves feel so off because they just don't have that feeling like ethereal. They don't feel ethereal to me.
They don't feel elegant.
No, elegant. That's another way of putting it. Like, there's all the subtle things that they do with Legolas. Like, they would have like a shining light.
Enlightened.
Yeah. Like, and he would say something interesting. Right. His eyes would glint. He walked on top of the snow and didn't sink. Like a lot of subtle things in the filming that really translated well from the books.
Well, I think there's one who has it. It's Elrond.
Oh yeah, Elrond. But his hair though. Why did they do that?
I don't understand the short hair concept for the elves. It's kind of weird.
It is.
But there's just this whole Elrond, at least every interaction so far, he does bring the elegance. He does bring the higher knowledge concept. Like, he's just more cultured than everybody else. They're trying to say it's because he's like being groomed for power and the politician in him, but it's like that's all elves.
All elves are like that.
All elves. They're supposed to be extremely cultured and
they live thousands of. They don't die, so they are all thousands of years old. They've seen it all, right? Yes. They're supposed to be extremely experienced, extremely knowledgeable in all things. Like, you're not getting destroyed by an ice troll because
All right, you know all of the combat you need to do for that interaction, right? You're expecting to see one in the cave because you're like, well, we should be on guard. Like, yeah, and it's just like his thing. Like, okay, they talk about him and like his appreciation for different craftsmanship and.
Oh, Calibre Moore. I'm excited for his character too, because I think that the very short part that you've seen him, he really is going to build up his fall. And I'm pretty excited because he's like, I love all this crafting, but he wants to be as good as I knew.
Right.
I can't remember that guy's name.
His ambition.
Yeah, his ambition's going to be his downfall.
You've seen that he's clearly skilled, right? Knowledgeable, right? And has grand plans. And you see the hero worship of swords from Elrond, which adds weight to it given how Elrond has been rolled out. So, like, that's a good story. Like, anyone associated with Elrond's story arc has been good.
Yep.
I feel
that's the thing that's so frustrating. It's like, and what's crazy is that, like, because I know Galadriel can't be killed off, I was like, I can't hope for that because, like, this is kill off her character, and then we can be like the rest of the set that they have. Honestly, pretty interesting. They haven't built up the one elf at all yet, but he could be interesting because he has he's in a different region. He's going in these tunnels. He's got grabbed by something. It could be something. I don't know.
He could be interesting. I'm just annoyed with the lack of world building around his character.
Agreed. Yeah, well, they don't explain diddly squat about anyone in that area, really, other than the fact we're watching them because they sided with Sauron 1,000 years ago.
I mean, okay, let's put it this way, right? There's this trust of him for his interaction with the human woman, right? There's distrust of her for her interaction with him. There's distrust of other races within that group.
One of my neighbors might have died.
Oh.
Or had something happen. Yeah, I know that sounds really morbid, but I live by a bunch of old people, so there's now an ambulance pulling in. So something bad happened. Say a prayer, everybody.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, for this,
sorry.
Back, for that character though, it's like you see all this distrust. Like that's where I'm going back to. Like there's distrust among villages, even right, and there's no mention that he's clear to explain his different appearance, that he's from a different region of where the elves are from, or whatever his background is, right? There's no talk of potential rivalry or distrust between the different factions of elves. There's a lot you could do, right? Or when it's like I said, maybe I mentioned before, when it's talk about going back home, they could just be going back to your region, you've been the only one from your group, from your area in this company. Are you excited to go back and interact with the people?
No, that would have actually taken effort. So when I
first
heard about the show,
right? It's not hard effort.
When I first heard about the show, I was like, oh, they're going to ruin the legacy characters. And then I was like, maybe they'll try to bring in so I was really hopeful that they'll be bring in other regions and just focus on that stuff.
Right.
And then I kind of thought they would, because that would actually fill the quotas that they really care about in Hollywood right now. And I was like, okay, well, they'll do that. It'd be really cool to see these other stories, and maybe they won't ruin Gandalf and everything like that. Well, they're just, I don't know what their plan is. They're just going to tell the same story, because we all know how they're not going to kill Sauron. Right. I mean, they could have the fall of Numenor, which is interesting, and Sauron's spirit or his body's destroyed, but that's thousands of years.
Sauron was taken as a prisoner to
Numenor, and then he corrupts them. They start worshiping something, I can't remember what it is.
Right. So where is that within the story arc? Because that's the
I haven't seen Numenor
I have. Right.
The greatest kingdom.
Right. So they have to talk about that at some point, right?
Yeah. And, well, the Rings of Power very much include the downfall of that freaking kingdom. Oh, maybe that's how they're going to introduce the other kingdoms, because
maybe
at least one of those rings goes to a South Rion.
Well, with the Wraith King and everything.
Yeah,
but it's okay. It's one of those things where clearly this is the era that Sauron starts to really get his grasp on the southern region and the east region, right?
Yep.
And it's just you could have introduced, if you wanted to truly introduce the characters properly and introduce characters from that region where they could talk about dark shit rising.
You're going to get really frustrated, because actually now that I think about it, I've seen the promos for Numenor, and this is the same thing. It's 50-50. That one makes slightly more sense, because
doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Well, that's the beginning of humanity. So all the other races spring from them. So like you can kind of be like, well, it was like you have to ignore biology, but you can kind of okay it in that instance where they're going to clearly not try the world build and go anywhere new, which is really frustrating.
I'm just saying, like, Sauron's clearly getting his power in the south and in the east, right?
Yeah.
He's solidifying his control. Perfect time if you had any, like, you could have had the dwarves that left the east, right? Look more eastern, and you could have had them also talking about how they were attracted by the wealth of this region and the fact that they could escape the conflict that they can see brewing. Like, you could easily world build, tease the conflict and Sauron's power being built, and then you could do the same thing with people who fled Harad in the Umber region in the south, and I don't know. It just seems really lazy to me. That's my complaint. Because you can explain all of it. No one would have a real reason to be upset at all if you explained it.
I just want to say, like, what I am going
Why
to
did Eminem get put in this?
Yeah, I think this is going to be Sauron, and I'm so mad. Like, building up to the fact that I'm pretty certain this is going to be Sauron, I'm so pissed. Because who the hell would trust this guy? He's supposed to be elegant and beautiful, and, like, he's a deceiver. So, like,
this doesn't even look like he's supposed to be, like, Luciferian.
Yeah,
and
I don't know
this
what
isn't that.
No, it's Eminem. Exactly. Like, I love this.
It literally is Eminem.
I love this. Like, yes.
But okay, but what I'm saying, we're 2 episodes in, right? And it feels really bad at world building for 2 episodes in. It's really bad for world building. For a place that, like, the whole thing is the universe is so epic.
Yep. Agreed.
And
I think that's just the main takeaway is that House of the Dragon is doing a really good. And what's funny is they're both prequels. So the House of Dragon's did a real good job grounding its story, world building, explaining why the characters are doing what they are, where they're from. Whereas Lord of the Rings is just not doing that.
But also, like, okay, look at how they did diversity for House of the Dragon. They explained that character's background. They explained why he's different. They've explained everything about him, his entire origin, perfectly and organically. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. And people don't complain as long as it fits the story. Also, can we just point out that technically House of the Dragon has less source material? Outside of having the author as a resource.
Yeah.
But
actual books, yes, because you have the entire creation story. And, like, obviously there's big gaps, but, like, the major beats are explained for you, and there's so much going on.
Right. But, like, with House of the Dragon, they have less source material for everything compared to this Lord of the Rings show. This Lord of the Rings show has an entire world built, entire languages built.
And there's there's degrees and scholars who dedicate their life to figuring out what Tolkien was talking about.
And they couldn't simply make world building sense of what they wanted to do.
I will give them one credit. So, like, it's not even the showrunners or anything, but whoever did the intro credits for this newest episode, I can't remember if it was in the first one, but the intro where they have, like, the sand moving and it's, like, within the vibrations of, like, a speaker. That's kind of what it looks like. That is, I'm going to give them credit. Maybe they shouldn't deserve it, but it's very reminiscent to how the world is created in the Silmarillion, where it's Iluvatar makes a song, all of the other, like, angels or whatever sing with it, and then, like, in the intro credits, you see, like, this one black stream that's going against the current, and that is Melkor or Morgoth. And it was cool to see that depicted, and it's like, okay, that's cool. The discordant note that creates evil in the world.
Right.
I'm not gonna. Maybe I shouldn't give him credit to actually. That's supposed to link to that.
Right.
But that's what it reminded me of.
Right. I mean, it's just we're in the Second Age, right?
Yeah, but let's forget about that because they are condensing thousands of years.
No. What I'm trying to say is, like, okay, hobbits aren't officially recognized until the Third Age, right? Yeah. So hobbits could have their origin story in the Second Age So them existing is fine because they're currently hiding, which is clear, like that's clearly the vibe they're going for. So they're staying away from humans. I'm just disappointed that Tom Bombadil is not, though.
I hope he comes out and like
I
beats
hope
up
so.
or something.
Right. Stay away from my hobbits.
Yeah, and also another thing is like maybe I'm getting my hopes. I'm getting my hopes up for the Gandalf character because like one, we don't know it's Gandalf yet.
Are you getting your hopes up? Because I'm
not.
Let
me explain. I'm getting my hopes up just a little bit because I do appreciate how they have him land in the meteor because that's exactly how I pictured it. Yeah. I think that's how it's described. But also him not being able to speak yet makes a lot of sense because that's the first time he's taken form. So it would make sense for him not to be able to, you know, I mean, if you want to, I guess you can explain everything away with magic or whatever, but it would make sense that he would not know how to like to do everything yet and be too powerful and like dim the lights and everything. That was cool.
Right. Doesn't truly have a conceptual idea of what his power translate to in this mortal world.
Exactly.
But I'm just disappointed. I think is the thing, because it's like I sound like a broken record at this point. It's just lazy. I think it boils down to I think they were lazy. I think they were too busy being like, oh, we've checked the boxes. We're just trying to build an epic world. We have this epic world already created. We don't really need to do anything, despite the fact that the vast majority of people haven't seen this universe, so they're not going to be able to tie anything together without.
And yet, we're going to make everyone look different because, like, the short hair on the elves
everybody look different than the previous world. I don't understand why the elves would look more elegant in a later age than in the earlier ages when they're coming off of leaving their special universe sort realm. That was like the most weird part of it too, when they had the short hair in the very very beginning, and it's just lazy. How would you rate him?
Well, to be fair, I think that they're better than I was expecting, but they still suck. I went in with no expectations. So like some of the stuff I'm actually enjoying, I think might be just part of the fact I had no expectations with the show.
Fair.
Liking Durin, liking Durin's wife, I can't remember her name, liking Elrond, and then like the Harfoots so far. I think that's just, again, everything else might be so terrible around them. That's why they look so good. But for the first episode, I would say probably a 4. It was pretty to look at. Again, there was a couple things I liked, but overall the dialogue was terrible and the world building was terrible. For episode 2, I would have ranked it a little bit higher just because, like you pointed out to me, like there's like a hope for a story, and like maybe there's going to be some conflict with the dwarves, and like maybe there's actually going to be some interesting story with like these weird diggers that are like digging these tunnels, and then there's just lots of Elrond, and I appreciated that, and lots of Durin. So I would probably rank that a 5.
I would agree. The first episode, I'm sadly almost willing to go down to a 3.5 because Galadriel's story arc is just so bad.
And it starts off that way. It's not even like it's just so bad.
It starts bad, it ends bad. That's her jumping out, right? In that one still, or does she jump out early in the second? It blended. I watched them back to back.
Jumps off the ship, you mean? Yeah. Oh, that's at the very end of the first episode.
Yeah. So the first episode is just awful, right? Her story arc is, and it's like the dominating story of the first episode. So I'm actually going to go with the 3.5. I hated her story arc that much. And it was just insulting to the world building that they were trying to do. And then, which was bad to begin with. But episode 2, I would almost be willing to do a 4.5 because I just like Elrond's story. And it gave enough hope to like telling the story about the Rings of Power. I don't expect Galadriel to really tell that story at all, actually. I expect her to just get her ring at the end.
Yeah.
I don't expect her to contribute jack shit to that story arc until the very end when she wants a ring to go fight. And be powerful enough to fight the rising power of Sauron. That's all I expect. So she's kind of a worthless arc, I think. Almost. Maybe the only reason her arc will have value is to like tell the story of Sauron's rise, that might be it. But the dwarves, Elrond, the Smith, all of the Elven Smith, all of that is a solid story arc.
Yep. I'm very excited to see like Halvard Moore's like fall from grace.
Right.
When he gets corrupted, when he gets tricked, really is what happens.
Right. I'm a sucker for the dwarves, which is what the main reason I actually like.
Well, they made them look right. Like, what the heck? They looked fine. Right. It would have been like it's the equivalent of them taking off their beards. Like, why did you cut the elves' hair? I don't understand.
Right.
They could have been any color you wanted.
I was fine with that because I'm just a sucker for that story arc. So the second one, when they're being introduced and everything, I'm more a fan of, and I'm hopeful that story arc continues, in good fashion, because everyone that Elrond has been introduced to has had story world building built around them. So, but I mean, obviously we're gonna keep watching, right? Yep. Because
at least
we're planning to review it, and if
I'm hopeful that they just like ignore Galadriel going forward and they just focus on the actual interesting bits.
Yes. I'm curious though. I am curious about the guy that they introduced her to.
Yeah, I don't remember his name didn't sound familiar to me at all.
They made him seem like he's like royalty from some destroyed house kingdom. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see that arc, I guess, on who they're introducing when it's explained. That might be the only value of that story in the short term, and I'm a sucker for Lord of the Rings, so I'm gonna be like happy to watch it for the universe. I just hope they do real world building.
Yep.
So it's like 3.5, 4.5. I feel like there's enough of I have to do more than that, like almost a 2. I had to do like a 2-point gap between them just because it's like much better from them.
Yeah.
I just need I need that better gap because there's too much of a gap between the episodes in quality.
Yeah, agreed. All right.
But also they're terrible overall. So.
Yeah, they're terrible overall. Well, again, like contrasting it to the Game of Thrones show right now is just leaps and bounds better.
I think Amazon needs to fire whoever did the story writing because
it's supposed to be the most expensive show of all time, and you don't feel it.
It feels it in everything except writing.
Yes. Well, I'm also trying to rewatch Lost right now, and the dialogue in that is so much better. Right. I realize it's completely different genres, but oh my gosh, like come on.
I mean, just look at the Game of Thrones. The House of the Dragon dialogue has been very good. None of it feels forced. None of it feels like the actors are bad. Like, did they get bad actors?
I don't want to say it's the actor's fault because I've never seen the Galadriel in those shows. Like, I can't speak to that. Like, I've only seen Elrond in one small spot.
No, but Elrond sounds okay.
Yeah.
So is it her? Is it what they've told her to channel?
I think it's what they told her to channel. Yeah, because I mean, they fire people all the time, and it's definitely down to the directors. Like, this is what I want.
The directors and the writers, right? Yeah. It's how they've written this character. Well, maybe it's a little bit acting because she can't do it naturally. What they're asking of her.
Yeah, but that's not on her at that point. They should have hired someone who could.
It's not necessarily on her because they clearly casted her for it. So if she can't do the role because it's that poorly written for her acting style or whatever, I mean, maybe it's not even possible to do the role and be likable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, it might not exist. It could just be a paradox of a character. Because it's not relatable.
No. Well,
it's not necessarily likable.
Kills that troll by herself. It's like, oh, well.
It's not even inspiring because she has the Superman effect. Superman's not inspiring. No. Who looks at Superman and is like, oh, I could be him. Look at his hardship and how he overcame it. No. Yeah. That's why Batman and Iron Man are the more popular superheroes.
Well, at least in film.
Huh?
At least in film.
In film, fine. But to the average person who's not a nerd about comics, they're more likable. Why? Because they're relatable. Okay? Yep. That's why they had so much box office success is because They're relatable. People want to see them, even if they're not the biggest fans of comic books and superheroes, because it's just like, she doesn't have any of that.
No,
at least tried to do it with her brother dying.
Yeah, but they just saw in a scene, like one little itty bitty scene. Like, come on,
I wish they had like done more with him dying.
Well, I mean,
like
so
they could have had a scene of him dying. That would have been good.
A similar character to Galadriel, what they're writing right now is, oh my gosh, what is that? What is that? Theoden's daughter. Why can't I think of her name? No, his niece actually.
Yeah. You're talking about the Rohan.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
She has a similar arc where her brother dies, or her cousin dies. I can't remember the
cousin. It's the son of the king.
Yeah, so the cousin dies. There's a whole scene where she's like mourning his death in there, and it's like, you get the idea, and then like Wormtongue comes and like flirts with her. But you get that scene, you understand the motivations and the connection those characters have.
But she has multiple dynamics, right? Yes. She can be the lady of Rohan.
Yeah.
She can be the lady of Rohan, right? When you first meet her, you have no indication that she's actually a badass with a sword, right? Like, you have no indication that she's a warrior, like princess type character. It's not.
Well, she can be the lady of Rohan, like you said. She's obviously she becomes a badass, but she's also really not fragile.
She can be delicate.
I don't even know if I want to say delicate, but
she can be feminine.
You're close, but you're just not the word. Whatever, but she can be vulnerable. That's the word. Vulnerable with Aragorn.
All right.
So she like expresses how she loves him and everything, but like she rejects him, or he rejects her.
She still wants him. She wants him to be.
But then she still kills the Witch King.
Right.
She kicks ass.
Like, she's more than happy to be, like you said, vulnerable and be like, but like seek out that leader still.
Yeah.
But when time comes, she fights.
Well, she's a person, not this weird robot thing.
Right. And Galadriel is not that at all. She's just on a mission to kill.
Yeah.
And it's.
And the thing is, again, you didn't get to see it, so you don't actually even feel for the characters. Like, they didn't show you the consumption of the trees or the consumption of the Cimmerals or anything.
Right.
You just, that's all exposition, and it just sucks. You don't actually feel anything.
you don't even see like, if you could see your brother die.
Yeah. No, you just
something that ties you into it, maybe, or I don't know, like. You don't really. You have like that one moment when it's not even the actress of Galadriel; it's the child actress having the bully issue, and then the her being like mentored by her brother of like whatever. But
that's another thing. So like, I might be way off on this, but was Galadriel ever a kid? I thought she just kind of like poofed into existence.
I have no idea.
The rest of the the first elves.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it's a weird.
At the very least, that's how I always thought about it. Was that they just poofed into?
I thought she was just one of the oldest ones, and as a result, has always been. I don't think of the elves and their origin story much, if I'm completely honest.
It's fascinating because you have like, quote unquote, dark elves that actually stayed in the Middle Earth, or I guess what was Middle Earth before, like Arnor, I guess.
Yeah.
No, Arda. So it was Arda before Middle Earth. And then you have the elves that actually sail west, and there's people in Valinor, and then they sail back and forth. And there's some that like reject their call to go back west. And there's some that leave, and there's some that fight. So there's like so many cool dynamics that they're just going to skim over and not care about.
Right.
And there's like political dynamics between those groups, because some of them like the green elves like really get along with the dwarves, and they actually hate other elves, and then there's elves that really hate dwarves but get along with elves. It's
which is why it blows my mind how they don't even talk about like having the one elf, right? They
could easily explain it now that I think about it, because there are elves that stayed in Arda, and they were different. They were like outcasts, and they could have been like the whole thing.
You could have made them anything you wanted.
Yep.
There's plenty of there's the different elf factions. Plenty. There's plenty of elves who have different. As you just mentioned, there's plenty of reason. Yeah. I'd never heard of any of them being black, but whatever. It is like you said, fantasy. You need
the thing is, like, there's a whole bunch of characters who are not described. There's entire factions that aren't described. So you can be like, well, this is actually how we're interpreting them.
But like, here's the thing: you need ways to differentiate characters. So different factions.
That's the ambulance.
So like having more than just outfits be different.
Yeah,
it's not a big like that's easy. Like,
well, it makes it so much easier to, like you're saying, visually just see them. I will say one thing that's bad about Game of Thrones is that they still aren't doing the purple eyes, and that really pisses me off. Yeah. Anyway, we like Game of Thrones. We are not liking the new Lord of the Rings show,
and it's not. It has nothing to do with. I don't know. It's literally just the fact that it's lazy.
It's lazy.
If I had to give them a legit grade, one word descriptor, it's just lazy.
Yeah, I would even attribute the hair to being lazy because it's like it's easier just to have them have a normal haircut, comb it back, than to have wigs and stuff.
Right.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. I don't understand what budget cuts. They didn't want to manage the wigs, even though it was the most expensive show in history, basically. That's the thing. Okay, it's pretty.
It is very pretty.
It's pretty. It's all those things. But, like, did they really have to skimp on the story?
No, and also even the pretty shots are so fleeting. It's like when they showed the Elven Kingdom in Valinor, it only lasted like a second.
You don't even really see anything.
No, and then like there's like this random sea monster that comes and eats some people, but then it's like, what was that there for?
That serves no purpose but to explain why she's taking so long to do anything useful.
Yeah, but the thing is, you could have just put her on the raft with that one person. You didn't need anyone else there.
Yeah, they could have just done pirates. They didn't need the sea monster. No. I don't see value to the sea monster. That's true.
And the thing is, they wasted clearly a lot of money on that sea monster, and it was
why. Which maybe they wanted to do it to explain the one guy's ruthlessness, but that's an expensive way to show his ruthlessness. You could have just done that with short rations.
Yep.
Like.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I give House of the Dragon writers, producers, directors an A grade.
Yep.
You can tell they love the material. You can tell they care about the material, and you can tell that they wrote a story that is compelling enough to make the actors love it.
Yep.
And care, right? Like, you see everyone is bought in. That is clearly an organization that everyone is bought into the vision.
Yep.
Everyone is.
And there's a lot of well-known actors in there right now. It's like it would take a lot
to clearly got those actors because they could sell a vision. It was good. What they were selling was good. Right? And it's shown. It's shown. With Lord of the Rings, though. Ugh. That's why, like, the rating doesn't. I don't even think an F does justice to how bad the writing and producing and directing has been. I think
again, keeping in mind that this is an amazing IP and they spent so much money on it. Like, this is not like an independent studio where like I would be like, okay, whatever, you know.
They could have gotten if the vision was good, they could have gotten any actors they wanted. They could have gotten any writers they wanted. Right? But I don't get the impression that the writers love the universe. I don't get the impression that they care about the universe. I don't get that impression at all, that they even gave enough crap to read about the lore.
Yep.
I think I get the impression that they were just told, you have this era, do whatever you want with it. Here's characters that you can use. Create whatever. And then there's the actors. Okay, some of them seem built in, like they've bought in because their characters have been good so far, like Elrond. Yeah, Durin. Like, anyone who's a dwarf is going to have a good role usually. So maybe they got some of the dwarf writers from the writers for dwarves from The Hobbit. I don't know, but as far as the overall thing, I'm just not. It's not. I don't feel like it's been sold well by director, writers, actors. I'm giving it a grade of an L. It's for lazy. It's not even an F for fail. It's just lazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we should end there before we keep going like another hour about how terrible.
Yeah, I know, because we didn't think it would go this long, but that's how much. That's how much we have issues with.
The thing is, like, one more point, just a passing glance over the material that they bought and were able to use. They like it just is so lazy in the world building. Like, just like I would still say I'm a casual Tolkien fan, even though I love the stories. I've read all of them. I'm not like a history buff on the world or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I know more storylines that they could go with, and like explaining these things.
You can look at a map and Google 2 wiki pages about the people from each region, and you would know enough to have done the world building that these lazy writers have refused to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's not hard. That's why it's lazy.
Yep.
Everything like no one would complain. No one would complain about any of the casting if the writers had and the producers had just come out and been like, "Don't worry. The world of Tolkien is diverse. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. We're not just filling a quota. We're not just race swapping characters. It makes sense. It's per the world."
Yeah.
Like, no one would be upset. Everyone would be like, "Okay, I guess we gotta wait."
Especially if they came out first and said like Tolkien was a master of his art and everything like that. Instead of like a lot of people surrounding this show, they talk about how terrible Tolkien was.
Yeah, they try to say he's racist.
It's just like, what are you talking about? First of all, he's in a different world. He's like from a different time, so you can't judge him by today's standards. And second,
they try to say he was a racist about the orcs are black people. They try to say
what
that.
Are you talking about?
There's literally a whole kingdom of black people.
Yes. Like, I'm so confused by that. Like the darkness, like the dark orcs are supposed to be black people. It's like, no, that is not at all true. Like at all.
Just because he models the elves off of like Scandinavians, just like that doesn't mean that whoever's evil has to be the opposite of blonde and white.
No,
like
that's
what
dumb.
Are you saying?
First of all, there's also pale orcs, so that's stupid to begin with.
There's also what?
There's also pale orcs.
Oh,
but, they're just corrupted elves. That has nothing to do with race. Oh my gosh, like it makes my head hurt.
It goes completely against like the Uruk-hai being, like you said, the corrupted. Like, weren't they the
Uruk-hai, the half men, half orcs? That
what one was it? Which one was the? No, I thought the Uruk-hai were like were like tied to being elves or something.
So the original orcs are corrupted elves. So that's where they came from. So like Melkor can't create anything, he only corrupts. Which is actually really funny how like people keep quoting that line for this show. They can't create anything new, they're just corrupting it. But like it's like the trolls are actually corrupted ents, which you get to see briefly, which was cool. Then like obviously the orcs that, then there's the Uruk-hai, which is just it's like orc folk in the black speech. And then Olg-hai, which is the troll folk. And so like there's all these different races that Melkor and Sauron create. Anyway, they're not black.
It's the dark side of the light side. That's all it is. And they're just treating it, they treat it like it's so stupid.
It is so stupid.
I think just this review we've done, right, points out how
little they put into
and
it.
How easy like all the controversy around this, right, didn't need to exist.
No.
None of the controversy needed to exist except for the fact that I'll explain it this way. House of the Dragon is directors giving the original love to the source material that the original trilogy of Lord of the Rings got from Peter Jackson, right? Mm-hmm. That's what House of the Dragon currently is. Whereas Lord of the Rings is getting the Star Wars treatment from Disney. Right? They don't love the material. They just want to make money. The IP. They just want to they don't care about fandom. They don't care about anything. In fact, they're going to be like, "Oh, let's demonize fandom to say how groundbreaking and cultured we are." Like, no, you're clowns. You're clowns. That's what it is. You're clowns who couldn't do simple research or do this bare minimum.
Yeah, well, there's actually like Tolkien experts where they clearly didn't hire any of them, the actual experts, but they could have brought in the experts, be like, hey, let's bounce ideas off of you. Like, how can we expand this world to, be more diverse or do whatever you can do with it?
Well, they didn't hire a single fan at this rate. Like, that's my point. Like, that's why it's so lazy. They didn't have a single fan in the writing room. they had a bunch of envious writers who are like, oh, we could never make anything as epic as this. Screw Tolkien, we hate him. Now let's point out all his flaws and ruin his work. Like that's the vibe I get at this rate.
Yep.
So
all right, let's end it on that.
Yeah, let's end it on that. All right, yeah.
All right, let's sign us off.
Yeah, well, I'm Andrew. Thank you, and
I'm Will.
And thank you guys for watching our long-winded review of House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power. And
we'll try to be shorter next week.
Yes, this is a weekly episode now while the show is going, and we'll try to be more brief. Obviously, with the introduction of Lord of the Rings to it, it's longer because we had a lot of grievances. We did do we were pretty fast with the House of the Dragon one this time. So, all right. And with that, we're going to sign off. See you guys next week.
Bye.